Then he will take over.
Every day.
All right, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we're going to start, please, of course, you can turn off your computer. We don't need a computer now. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to introduce myself in a couple of minutes, but before that, I want to share with you three introductions, actually. And the first one is from your Dean of Asia Pacific. That's my dear colleague, Professor Ritika Gupta. Please welcome Ritika Gupta.
Thank you, Xavier. All right. So firstly, Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you guys have had an exciting start to the new year, and no better way to start than with the Imagination Week. So let me introduce myself. I'm Ritika Gupta, and I'm the Deputy Dean of the APAC campus. So I will seen many of you in the hallways already, and I will see many more of you who've just come to Singapore. Welcome to Singapore. Welcome to ESSEC, our APAC campus. Many of you are returning students, so this is not new to you. But for many of you, it's your first time in Singapore, I'm assuming, for some of you. Yes? How many of you are new to Singapore? Quite a lot of you. So hope Singapore is treating you well. It's a fantastic city, as you may have already discovered. Really easy to get around, really fun things to do. So I hope you make the most of the stay here at APAC. You have about 6 months, so you study hard and you play hard. That should be the motto. But moving on to what we are here today for, which is the Imagination Week, and this is something extraordinary that Professor Pavi had created many years ago. And students have been benefiting from this wonderful experience year on year. And we have a fantastic line of events which has been curated by Professor Pavi and the team that has supported him, as well as the academic affairs team on the ground. And you have people who will be from the theater, performing arts, creative domains as well. And what is really unique is, I don't know how many of you have asked yourself that question, why are we doing this, right? I mean, what is, we are business students and why are we here? I'm sure you've got a lot of material about the Imagination Week, but what's really interesting is to reflect on, we get so caught up with the courses you take in business and all the different activities that you do, which are all business related, but we don't take that moment to really step out and to experience what else the world has to offer, to assimilate the different knowledge bases. So what you learn in the classroom with what is happening out there in the creative areas, in the philosophical space, and so on. And you are going to work on projects as well, which is around shaping the political ecosystem of the future. And so you'll get that chance to assimilate these different knowledge bases, and there'll be interesting takeaways for you guys as well. And you are going to be mentored by excellent tutors who I know are in the room. So a big thank you to those of you who are going to be helping the students along this journey. So thank you again. So with that, I don't have much else to say, but really want to tell you to make the most of this opportunity. These don't, come by so easily during your, tenure as a student. So hope you have a wonderful Imagination Week experience and have really interesting takeaways from it. So with that said, I'll actually, send the floor back to Professor Pavi. And I would like to really thank the entire academic affairs team who supported Professor Pavi in curating this, Professor Pavi and the team who've put this event together. So back to you, Xavier, and good luck and enjoy the experience. All right.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of videos to show you actually, because it's quite early in France. So Vincenzo Vinzi the Dean of and President of ESSEC Business School, wanted to share a couple of things with you. So it's what I'm going to do now is to share with you two videos. One is quite short actually, from Vincenzo Vinzi, then Emmanuel Neger. Emmanuel Neger has to certainly know his academic directors for the Master in Management, so your program actually. She was supposed to come to Singapore last December actually, when she missed it. So we're going to share that, if you don't mind, to share the Vincenzo Vinzi presentation. It's just a couple of words, and then Emmanuel Neger, and then after that, I'm going to start Imagination Week with you in details. We can move on. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to see you for the kickoff of this Imagination Week. First of all, let me wish you a wonderful year 2023. Going back now to the Imagination Week, I'm sure that this week will open new horizons for you, will stimulate your imagination, and will allow you to consider new ways of living, of thinking, and of working. This year's inspiring theme of shaping political ecosystem that will be the common thread running through the choice of exceptional speakers and the organization of the workshops. I would like to warmly thank Eleanor Baudry, ESSEC alumna, president of Figare, who has accepted to be Imagination Week's patron this year. The inspiring example of an alumnus is certainly one of the best ways to approach the distinctive features of the ESSEC experience. I would also like to thank Professor Xavier Pavie and his team who have organized this 11th edition of the Imagination Week, a truly unique and innovative experience at ESSEC Business School that has already transformed 10,000 students. Congratulations, Xavier, for this outstanding achievement. Last but not least, I would like to thank you, dear students, for being here today, ready to embark on this unique journey. This will be a fully face-to-face Imagination Week, and we hope that you will enjoy your time. Let me now say a few words about this year's theme, Shaping Political Ecosystem 2050, as it pertains to a number of current issues linked to the economic, environmental, and social crises that are forcing us to rethink our organizations, our economic systems, and our management models. A major transition, social, environmental, and technological, is necessary to build our future. 10 years ago, the challenges we are facing today were already at stake, but they seemed very distant, not so urgent. In 10 years from now, if we have not collectively solved them, it will most likely be too late. My hope is that on January 6, 2050, each of you will remember what life was in 2013, what it was in 2023, and can say to yourself, our way of life is so much better now, so much more inclusive. Our generation has accomplished much more than I could imagine, and I've been an actor of this positive change. Maybe you will even remember that ESSEC played a great role in helping you to change your vision of the world, not only by training you with cutting-edge academic, scientific, technical, and technological knowledge, as well as on social, political, and environmental challenges, but also, and this is the most important lesson, by training you to go out of your comfort zone and imagine what your future could look like. This is why we devote an entire week to imagination at ESSEC, because we believe it is a core part of our mission to educate and train future leaders. You. Imagination is the mental ability to go beyond what already exists, to go beyond the day-to-day difficulties and challenges in order to invent something new. It contributes to the pioneering spirit of innovation and creativity, which you will need if you want to become adaptive, creative, and responsible leaders who can cope with and solve the unprecedented challenges that lie ahead. Solving these challenges will require imagination, but also a strong sense of humanism, of common interest, and social responsibility, values that are deeply rooted in ESSEC's history and pedagogy. Indeed, breaking through frontiers is akin to ESSEC's pioneering spirit. Always putting responsibility and people first is the only way to ensure this world becomes more sustainable and inclusive. Not simply words of wisdom or an ambitious declaration of intent. It is the sincere engagement of the ESSEC whole community. The aim of Imagination Week is also to contribute
Master in Management here in Singapore. That was 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I decided at the start of the Jean-Michel Blanquer, we have decided to create the Master in Management students, the intake students. So actually, if you are here today, it's because we have done that 7 years ago. I spent 6 years in Singapore, so I live here for 6 years, and I decided to move back to France 1 year ago. So I know quite well your program. I know quite well Singapore, and I'm very happy to do Imagination Week with you guys. The two important groups, the intake students, and what I've done with intake students for 5 years, 6 years actually, but what was an amazing experience. I remember that almost every day, but what I've lived actually with the students. And I'm very happy to welcome the other students to discover Singapore. And I really hope that the second groups just coming will be in a good hand of the intake students. The purpose of this week, I'm going to explain to you right now, is to help you to think a bit beyond our comfort zone, or definitely different than what you can learn at ESSEC. This week is all about business. We're going to talk about business at all for 1 week. And now, when I've decided to create Imagination with that, what to explain to the students how we can develop our creativity, how could we do something in different ways. That's something that you cannot do at ESSEC. You know that or not, but since 1907, beginning the creation of ESSEC Business School, we never have had one course of creativity at ESSEC. In plenty of schools, the engineering schools or management schools, but at ESSEC we never have had one. Now we have one. We actually needed to do our own groups together, of course, a bit later. But that was last week. That was really tough actually, because we have started on the second of Jan, so you can imagine the mood of the students coming and starting first on the 2nd of Jan morning. That was not an easy way to pass. It then began to provide one knows on the 8th or 9th of Jan. Imagination Week, as I explained to you, the purpose of Imagination Week is, I'm going to read it because that's the only slide I read, but I want to make sure that you really read it at the same time. That is why I'm reading. Imagination Week aims at enriching students culturally by taking them out of their environment, what we usually use as a comfort. It confronts their students by transdisciplinary aspect, but I'm explaining to the concept of transdisciplinary knowledge. Is being a visionary spirit. Why? Because most of the time we talk about what we're going to do for the next semester, or what we're going to do for the next month, or what we're going to do for the next quarter or next year. But for 1 week, we want to work about what we could plan within the next couple of decades. The objective of the week is to help you to become aware of the challenges of the society, where they are going to be, and start questioning your contribution in terms of helping them, the students, develop their critical thinking, their critical skills for their professional life. 4 different categories that we're going to learn this week: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, I'm going to explain all of their elements, and inquisitive culture. Stimulating their imaginations. You can find a similarity with creativity, but it's not exactly the same. It's key to enhance responsible innovation. That's just what the edition. Well, the edition of Imagination Week is today, I got last week, and I've explained to you, it's a whole process, it's compulsory to get it at ESSEC Business School. That's the case. We have started, when I created it, that was for the students, only for the students for a couple of years, and then after that, they forced me actually to do it for all the programs, and why I did, and I still do it for the program education. It means that we have trained about 13,000 people, and along the different years, across the different years, we improve a bit the methodology time to time in order to expand what we make expand this week. That's the Hall of Fame, according to nationality, but I would say, and yes, a lot of French people here, French students here. So I get to recognize some of them because that's French part. So it's probably indicated one use came around, but the French people, you can imagine what kind of old figure they came around from Michel Serre to Louisiana or Nico Class or people like rap music like and others in Singapore we have really found a lot of very famous people too. 4 pillars of the week is what we did. First of all, about visionary spirit. As I said previously, we'll just think about not about the next week, but about the next semester, but how we can work with things in a very long term. Very long term means many decades. And that's it builds actually a visionary spirit according to what you explained today, and how could you want to build something according to the analysis, according to what you spend every day in your everyday life to think about the future. It won't be very easy because when I'm asking you to think about 2050, it's not very easy to find something on the internet. Everybody knows that. When you have a question, first of all, you go on, I would say maybe Google, maybe now you know what it is, ChatGPT, and you want to find a way in order to get the answer. That's not exist actually. When you think about the political ecosystem by 2050, it does not exist. It means that when something does not exist, you need to work on yourself, maybe with creativity. The creativity is the second part. As you certainly know, creativity comes from the Latin word creare. Creare means what? It means that to create something or to make something, to do something. That's the difference with imagination. Because creativity means you have to do and to create something in real, materials, like a model, like a prototype, like a first-hand experience with concrete materials. The question of the time is, do you consider yourself as a creative person? Most of the time people say, no, I'm not a creative person. For many reasons. First of all, because you are shy. You are too shy and I don't want to maybe the professor or someone else will ask me something. So no, not a creative person. There is other option, which is you think that creativity is for artists or for writers or musicians, for instance, which is not the case actually. The question is not, are you a creative person or not? The question is, how far are you willing to develop it? To rephrase my point is how actually creativity is like a muscle. More you train your creativity, more you will become creative person. That's the main message for this first point. More you train your creativity, more you will be a creative person. That is why many people said kids are creative or children are creative. Because actually, first, they are not too shy to create it, and then they start to mix different things, to combine different things. And after a couple of years, when you go to primary school, for instance, we try to tell you that we have to do what you do in 2 different categories or clusters, like language, history, math, for instance, and you don't combine all of them, which is not the case because actually, when you are a kid, when young actually, you can leave everything without any constraints. The problem is, after that, as I said, in primary school, you start to stop it. And then you stop being creative. You stop training your muscle. So if you want to become a creative person, you have just to train yourself. The problem is, today, maybe you didn't train your creative muscle for many years. So we have to restart. We have to rebuild your muscle. And that's what is something we're going to together, we'll be able to restart the machine of creativity inside yourself. That is why when we mentioned that the myth actually how to run it, a non-creative behavior is learned. You are creative by nature. You are a creative person by nature. But time after time, as I said, you become less and less and less creative. That is why we need to come back to this DNA that you have. You are a creative person. How is it possible to transform it? Creativity is for art, which is not true. Think about yourself. You are all students at ESSEC Business School. How could you differentiate yourself? How could you differentiate yourself? You will all get, I'm pretty sure, I hope so, you will all get your graduation of ESSEC, your diploma of ESSEC. How could you differentiate yourself? Maybe some of you would say, yeah, but, I'm a pharmacist. Before that, I did the pharmacy studies. Some of you engineer studies. Some of you maybe you are lower too. So you're going to start to compare yourself with something else than ESSEC. But among the engineers in that group, engineer plus ESSEC, plenty of them. That's exactly the same thing with the pharmacist. You certainly want to work in the pharmaceutical industry. Plenty of pharmacists plus the ESSEC diploma. So how, again, the same question, how to differentiate yourself? The internship, you will all do the same. BCG, bank, so on and so forth. Everybody wants to go there. Or maybe for industrial companies, in the pharmaceutical companies, it will be exactly the same. It means what? It means that the only way for you to differentiate yourself is to be more creative. That's the only way. And the more competition you have, more creativity you need to get. I'm going to explain that in a minute. That's basically your additional value. What is your additional value about yourself versus your neighbor? What is your additional value? It is only the creativity that you have. Only about it. Your personality is based on what you've done before. And what you've done before, it could be in sport, it could be in art, it could be in study, it's based on the creativity from yourself that nobody can copy past you. This is actually how we shape our personality. We shape our personality thanks to what we have done and the creativity that we do. That is why in 2010, the World Economic Forum, when you know the World Economic Forum, in 2010, the World Economic Forum explains that by 2015, so 2010 to 2015, we need to get the creativity skills as the 10th one. The creativity, according to the World Economic Forum, is one of the top skills that we need to get. That was in 2010 or 2015, right? 2015 or 2020, creativity is top 3. For the simple reason that we have more and more artificial intelligence, more and more deep learning, more and more ChatGPT, more and more, and so on and so forth. So again, if I compare yourself to your neighbor, that's very easy to differentiate yourself, except and to your creativity. But if you compare every single student with machine learning, whatever it is, computer, for instance, what is your additional value? Artificial intelligence can do better than you. Machine learning can do better than you. Deep learning as well, except the creativity. That is why it's one of the top 3 competencies we need to develop. As well as in 2020 or 2022, creativity is one of the top skills that we need to develop. That is why at ESSEC Business School, as well as plenty of schools, I also am, we need to develop and we need to teach and we need to learn creativity. Same thing for 2025. That's why we need creativity. Creativity is something new, something that you just discovered. Creativity is something useful to you. Creativity is something useful and something understandable. We're not talking about innovation here. We're talking first about creativity. Something understandable, something useful, something new. That's something with your environment, how your environment will shape you. You need to create what you want a very competitive environment, like yourself when you want to get a job, like yourself in different situations. The community will help you to shape you. Creativity is not just for one person, not just for yourself when you are in your bedroom, in your living room, and you do something just for yourself. Creativity is not that. Creativity is shaped by the community. And the same community will evaluate you all the time, whatever you can do. Think about yourself. If you want to do a meal, for instance, in the evening, not just for yourself, but something with someone else, you're gonna get an evaluation. And it's forged actually by the community. If you're vegetarian, for instance, or if you are into Asian food or whatever. That's the principles of creativity. The problems and why actually you prefer to tell me I'm not a creative person is because you need to work. That's like a muscle. As I mentioned to you previously, if creativity is like a muscle, like for instance, if you want to run a marathon, if you want to run 10K, for instance, you need to prepare yourself and train yourself. You need to work for that. That's exactly what we have to do for creativity. we need to work, we need to make an effort, and we need perseverance, which is not something easy because most of the time we are lazy guys. You know? Of course, we are lazy because that's the part of our brain is actually managed by the specific cells into our brain that we are always looking for comfort, simplicity, and pleasure. That's basically a part of our brain. That's why we are here today. But if you want to do something else, you don't have a choice. You need to work to make it important and to persevere. The good news is, as a human species, we are able to do it, which is not the case for every single species, but human species is able to do 5 things that we have. As a human, I can create because I'm able to choose between 2 colors, for instance. I'm able to choose between a chair, between 2 people. I'm able to choose everything I think. But it's not just that. I'm also able to interpret. For instance, if you are on your smartphone, I can interpret what's going on your smartphone. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can interpret what you've done. As well as I can manipulate. I can use my hands. 99% of your time, my time actually is spent our time on what? PowerPoint, or whatever, or skill, or other software like that. Manipulate. When was the last time you manipulated creativity? We are able to predict. We are able to predict what could happen in the next couple of hours, next couple of months sometimes. And we are able to recall what I've done during Christmas holidays, what I've done last week, what I've done last hours. A human species is the only species on Earth which is able to combine all of them. And that is why we are able to create. If you use it, if I use all the competencies I have, I can create. It's not the case for animals. For instance, the birds. Some of the birds that are able to choose, they are able to interpret or sometimes to predict the weather, but they don't have all the skill in order to create this. Only human beings are able to do. And that is why we have a competitive advantage or additional benefit to prefer versus the other. Let me give you an example. Yes. Video. Don't remember if I did. Yeah. No, it's not. I forgot that. It's just an image. Anyway, maybe some of you, you've seen the movie Apollo 13. Apollo 13, you know, that's a true story actually. This one is the Tom Hanks. And they were in the shuttle, and they have a capsule of oxygen actually on the back of the capsule. And the pilot actually was in the front of the capsule. And they were supposed to use oxygen to go from a place to another one and they use creativity. We're going to share that video in a couple of hours if you just want to get this video. It's just 1 minute or 2 minutes. And it shows us actually how we can create, manipulate, choose, and so on and so forth. To create, probably you heard about the 2 brains that we have. It's not a part of basic intelligence. The left one is more located on what we call logic, analysis, organization, and so on. And then sometimes you've heard about the right part of the brain. And the right part of the brain is more dedicated on emotion, intuition, music, art, and so on. That's fake news. Never trust about their brain and wide brain. That's not true. Actually, you have just one brain with lots of connection. The question is, think about it. Think about it for yourself now. How you train and you feed and you nourish your brain. How do you do it? You go to school, right? Not with your smartphone, you go to school, you can learn at school for sure. When you are with your relatives, when you are with your friends, for instance, but the question is, how do you build your brain? There is a very famous neurologist, actually, and he said that we should consider our brain like the psychotic amelia, you know, the famous cathedral in Spain, still under construction. Your brain is always under construction. The question is, how do you build your brain? How could you develop your brain, nourish, feed your brain? The problem is, if I consider your brain here at ESSEC Business School, maybe we're going to develop just one part dedicated to management. Basically, it could be accounting, finance, marketing, whatever, but it could be just one part. Maybe according to what you've done before, engineer, for instance, or pharmacist, which there is plenty of them, that's another part. The question is, how could you continue to do it? How could it possible to do? You don't have so much choice. You definitely need to push yourself to extend your brain to different other disciplines. And that's what we call it the transdisciplinary. I'm going to explain to you in a minute, but I want to quote one of our special credit advisors for imagination, Gustav. And you will see the video of Gustav this afternoon. Our specificity, so I mean the human, our DNA, our poetry, our dimension come essentially because we create, because we create. Again, it goes back to what we said previously. What shaped your creativity? Your creativity is shaped according to what you've done, what you create, what you make. That's how we shape yourself. That is why we need to develop our creativity, for sure, because it shapes our personality. We need to nourish our brain. Transdisciplinarity is here to help us. What we're going to do for that, it's the transdisciplinarity with this definition. A transdisciplinarity is a scientific and intellectual posture. Its objective is to understand the complexity of the modern world and the present. That is why we need to go beyond discipline. This is what we have here, for instance, in our marketing courses. And multidisciplinary is one marketing courses, we have management courses, you can have accounting courses, for instance. We have different, even though it is mainly on the management umbrella. Interdisciplinary is when you are able to mix that. Okay, so it's sometimes something that you can have. But on the top of that, what we have to go is beyond interdisciplinary, which is transdisciplinary. That is why this week we're going to explore that. We're going to talk about philanthropy. We're going to talk about architecture today. We're going to talk about education, oceanography, standard community, marine ecology, something that we won't explore, like I said, for all years we're going to spend together. But for that week, the purpose to me, actually the purpose to the team, is to give you a clue of why it's so important to think with a different approach. And that is why we're going to explore all of them. Design and gastronomy, art as well will be here, and artificial intelligence as well as here. At the end of the week, and at the end of the day, the purpose is not just being creative for just the purpose of insight. The purpose of responsible innovation is helping to shape the world in a better, innovative way, in a better, responsible way. Responsible innovation is the ability to integrate political, that's the purpose of the week, environmental and human issues into the innovation process by integrating the responsibility of the innovators. It means that everything that you're going to do should be related to this changing the world, building the world in new ways with a responsible approach. It could be about school. It could be about living in a different spaces. It could be about how could you think about the clothes, the meal, the food, every single thing. Every single project should be related to this thing. Shaping political ecosystem by 2050. Everybody knows, I hope so. Everybody knows that what an ecosystem is. Ecosystem is how things are linked together. It initially comes from biology, actually, and everything is related. And everything can link everyone to support and to feed everyone. And the political comes from, we know that as well, the Greek word, politikos. Political means how myself, as a citizen, I'm going to act into the society, into the city, into the town, but I am a political subject. And as a political subject, how can I deal with the rest of my my city or my town or my society? That's what you have to do. For that week, you have to think about a creating project, creating an original project is what you have to do within the next couple of days. Related to the thing that I just explained. Second thing, working in a group by a team of 5 to 6 people. We have done actually the group in order to try to mix actually your background meaning your nationality. Sometimes the background will be according to what you've done before, academic backgrounds, but the purpose is to try to force you to think a bit differently through what we're going to do together, but also inside your group. Proposing a innovative and practical solution in the method that we can explore in a couple of minutes or hours. And presenting the outcome in front of the other students, meaning that at the end of the week, you will be here on stage instead of me, and you're going to present actually what kind of solution you want to develop for the 20th century, 50 years. Getting inspiration from international experts. That's the conference we're going to have all together, which is something very important. Today, we're going to have the opening conference, and every day, we're going to have 1 or 2 conferences. The purpose of that conference is to find some materials, to get inspiration. The purpose of imagination is not to have a big name on the screen and to have a showcase here. It's not the purpose. It's to get inspiration to do something different and to help me to think in a different way. That's why, since the beginning of imagination week, I've explained all the time that it's definitely not a TEDx conference. TEDx conference is just a conference without intelligence. Actually, it's just a very, very brain conference, about 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, no more than that. And then we move to a conference, to another conference, which is not the case of imagination. For sure, we're going to have conference, not for 15 or 20 minutes, and we have time to digest it. Not to get a dinner system, but to visit your tutors, actually. And this point is very important to get inspiration material that is not a hand by itself. The purpose is to use it for the materials for your project. That's what we're going to do all together. Inclusion will be within the next couple of hours, right after the opening conference. And then we're going to go through all day, all week long, with empathy, which is about the methods, the definitions, ideation, the prototype, and the launch, which is the last phase. That's actually the path you're going to do all week long. As I said at the beginning, imagination is a course, so we have to make sure that you're going to go through different learnings. The first one is to help you develop your critical thinking, debate, dialogue, statement. Based on, for instance, the conference as well as the project, all together in groups, how is it possible to enhance dialogue and debate for your project? Second part is inquisitive posture. Inquisitive posture is how could we go deeper into the project we want to develop. And for that, we need definitely some feedback. We need to prototype. We need to listen to each other. Creativity, I've already explained what it is, and that's the part of the learnings of the week. And then collaboration. Collaboration is more important than leadership. Of course, we need leadership to make the project for sure, as well as how yourself you're going to be a support of the leadership of someone else. Critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and inquisitive postures are the main key learnings of the week. Together, all week long, we're going to go through different parts. That today, the green part, blue-green part, actually, that's the conference. And the pink one are the workshop with the tutors. The different other things are basically some part of break that we're going to have. So as you can see, it's always a combination, a blended approach with conference to get materials as well as the workshop itself. That's the transdisciplinary expert we're going to have. Today, we'll introduce him within the next couple of minutes when we will have a lecture. It's an architect, then marine ecologist, then a designer, then NGO philanthropic person, Kumar, with a comedians and the first drag queen here, Singapore, Osan Leon, which is the creative directors and stage screen actors, and Janet Fong is chocolate maker. That's what we're going to have for the conference all week long. As you can imagine, it's definitely not someone that we can have at ESSEC Business School. That's definitely a drastically difference than what we used to have here. You've seen probably just right here, just outside level 1, actually the big painting that we call it the Everest one. The Everest one, if you look at it, actually, you have a business school and you have the Everest at the beginning, at the middle of the painting, and you have the Asian part on one side and European US on the other side, just outside of this room. But if you go to level 3, level 4, level 5, you've seen plenty of art. When I created Imagination 12 years ago, that was searching, and I said, why not? We want to expand our vision, we expand our thought, having artists and visitors. That is why we want Sergi Pontoise, for those they already came into Sergi Pontoise, the campus, and for those who will discover it, that's a couple of examples, because we have more than 15 arts across the campus, here in Singapore as well as in Sergi. We are the first school, engineering school, business school, management school, whatever, with a lot of street art into the campus. You have Java is on the big floor. That is in Sergi. This one is in Singapore, in Cryptic. Ashwani, third floor, fourth floor, and that is actually Sergi for them. This week, we're going to have another one. We're going to have a new one. Araya Peba, she's an artist, she's a street artist too, and she will be on the first floor from today, tomorrow, until the end of the week. And the purpose is not just to have painting on the wall, right? It's to have an artist in the written, meaning that the purpose is to interact with you, is to interact with each other in order to make sure that we're going to learn from the artist as well. One of the most important things since the beginning of Imagination Week, as I can imagine with the painting, we always want to have first-hand experience. We don't want to have someone to comment. We don't have someone to give us a history of something, but just first-hand experience. To help you all week long, you're going to have 4 imaginers. 4 imaginers. Maybe that's if you don't mind to come on stage with me. Fan, Tamara, Taiwei, and Wally. Because that's actually the imaginers that they will help you all week long. Thank you very much, Wally, for being here. Tamara, Fan, and Taiwei, seasoned imaginers, seasoned teachers, and you're going to be with them all week long to help you develop your project. Thank you very much for being here. We have also 4 people to help us actually that are very helpful for communication and so on. Abhiraj, where are you? Abhiraj, yeah. Now, thank you for the precious help for the As you know, it's a grading. It is a courses. We have grading people in the courses. And you have four different ways of being graded. First, it's a team grading, so you work per groups, and you will have a grade per group. It's not only that, you're going to have also an individual grading given by your tutor, managers, according to your participation, according to your involvement all day long. You're going to have also a peer evaluation at the end of the week, and you're going to present your project and the future evaluations too. So we have different ways according to team grading, your grading, peer evaluation. And at the end, we're going to share our experience all together. For that, we use two social networks. We use Instagram and LinkedIn. Actually, that's basically the two ways to communicate on Imagination Week. Because we've done last week, the last couple of years actually, and we're going to continue on the Instagram and LinkedIn for this. Another point that I want to explain to you. All week long, all week actually, we don't talk about business. I said it's mostly focused on something very different. But we have one pattern, sometimes the godmother, sometimes the godfather. And we have decided this week to have Elena Botry, she's the CEO of the sugar company Cigarette. She will be with us on Zoom, but we'll be with us at the middle of the week. And she was the godmother last week for Century Company. She will be also the godmother of the week for Singapore campus. That's right. Is that clear for everyone? Yes. Or do you have any questions you want to? Yeah. We have 5 minutes before the opening lecture because the guest is coming. Any question we have? Do you have any question or do you have any? No. I think we here. It's sure. I get it's right. No question. It's one of you. So we're going to do our guest lectures right here. So let's so for the training conference. For the conference today, we have experts welcome and so that we have here as a global design for the expense frequency to be very different than the organization today. Global designer with URA, Global Development Authority, in 1990. He joined TP Architects in 1992 and became a partner in 2000. Between 2011 and 2015, Lithium joined on groups as a group managing director. He was executive director of Singapore to spearhead industry engagement from 2010 to 2020. 2021, Singapore University of Technology and Design appointed Lithium as the head of PILA and Central Director of Designs. He became also program director in 2020. Lithium is passionate about voluntary work on NGO. He was elected president for Singapore Architects and Institute of Architects, Singapore Building Council, also Design Business Chamber of Singapore, and chairman for World Green Building Council. He initiated the advancing net zero movement, resulting in adoption of net zero building worldwide. Please welcome Professor Lithium.
do this. This will sound through the this one is for the speaker. So use this one as the portrait.
Okay, well, very good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to see you dressed in formal, so that we can have the air conditioned temperature when it's time. I brought a jacket along, I shouldn't have. Okay, so well, I will spend the next 30-40 minutes to speak on this topic called Imagine a Net Zero World. Since your week is called Imagination Week, correct? So I need you to imagine. I'm not the only one giving you ideas. You should be generating ideas, and we'll talk more about that. Thanks, Prof. Xavier, for sharing your view about the kind of framing of this discussion about shaping political ecosystem 2050. The word politics means many things to many people. Of course, in some places, it makes our antennas stand up. In some places, it's fine for normal. So I like it that when you explain in Greek terms what politicals mean, it's a practice and theory of influencing other people on civic or individual level. It sets me thinking about it that all my life I've been trying to influence someone, right? When you are a child, you try to influence your parents, give you the presents and you really desire. When in university, we try to influence our professors to give us the best grade. In work, we try to influence your employer to give you the best grades and bonus. We do that all the time. So politics is not new to every one of us. Just about in the peak of what I had several peaks in my career, but one of the peaks in 2007. I was doing very well as a practicing architect with the Singapore Club EP Architects. And my boss at that time told me, said, Lee Xian, I think you have been very successful in influencing the workplaces, your clients and everyone. I think it's about time you go out and influence the rest of the world. So what do you mean by that? Say, I want you to become the president of the Singapore Institute of Architects. So I said, you know, I am very busy and doing very well. I should be spending time with my family, but you have any time left because of you. And why should I go and serve the rest of the community? So he said to me, very simple, if you don't, this profession is going to face far too many challenges and going to sink us. So we need help. So I went out and never turned back. Work in the NGO circle, work in the institution level has increased many fold over the years. So influencing others to do good work is part and parcel of what I do now. And I'm so pleased that I can be here to influence you, and I hope you influence me as well at the end of the session. Now, when we talk about net zero and sustainability, in the last few years especially, I think there were many voices, and of course, we all kind of think that we're going in the right track. There are certainly haters, there are certainly detractors of sustainability. But to me, especially when I work with the World Green Council, when I visited about 40 of our country members, I think the greatest enemy is apathy. The greatest enemy is not Donald Trump, sure. It's not the person who tell you that I just don't believe in sustainability, at least I believe in something. The worst apathy is the one who don't care at all. And if you trace the kind of reason why they don't care, a lot of times it's down to a lack of knowledge, a complete lack of knowledge in some instances. And it is not a striking thing that without knowledge there are actions. So here I am sharing with you some of my knowledge gained over the last 10-20 years on this particular important area. And I think we need to continue to spread the knowledge wide and far. So I kind of shaped the contents of my presentation in this period. Where are we? I don't have all the answers. I'd like to hear from you. Where do you think we are in the kind of race to net zero? But some of the things we have to do, regardless of where we are. So I'll cover some of those net zero processes, net zero environment, net zero behavior, and finally, how do we start? So where do you think we are right now in terms of sustainability? From 1 to 10, 10 means we are doing very well. We're going to overcome it. We're going to bring temperature down, global rising temperature down to 0. We're going to be successful in getting all the countries to do what they want to do. And of course, 0 is not. How many in this room think that we are at a level 5? 1%. Okay. How many of you think that we are at level 7? Nobody. How many of you think that we are at level 2? More hands. How many of you think that we are at level 1? Okay, the rest I don't know. I should ask you if you're thinking that we are level 0. Anyway, keep the answers to yourself and make a judgment call as you live day by day, as you walk the streets, as you look at the people out there, ask yourself this question. Where are we now in terms of the sustainability drive, right? But I will talk briefly about a few things that you are familiar with, but I want to just pull out a few salient points that I think are important for our learning. So these are the areas of discussion. Rising temperature. Does everyone agree that this is real? Yes. This is not fake, right? It's not fictitious, right? It's not rumor, right? Science, proven. So nobody needs to be convinced that there is a rising temperature. And again, with rising temperature, you obviously experience climate change to some degree. I lived in Singapore most of my time. I spent a period of time in London. But in both places, you don't really experience extreme weather. Surprisingly, within the last 4-5 years, I personally experienced weather that I never experienced before, even for the locals. In about 2017, I gave a talk in Istanbul. When we left Singapore airport, it was reported the temperature should be around 2 to 3 degrees, but generally okay weather. When we landed, it was -2. None of us were prepared, and the plane was supposed to dock at the terminal, did not dock at the terminal. We all had to do up on cold wear to walk on time. And by the time I got to Istanbul city center, the snow was 3 feet high. So much for weather prediction. That was once in, I think, about 20 or 30 years, heavier snowfall in Istanbul. I don't know how many of you have been to Istanbul. How often do you snowfall in Istanbul? That is of the kind of 2 to 3 feet. And about 2018, I took a trip to Tel Aviv to give another talk. And when I arrived that day, it was clear sky. The next day, when I woke up from my hotel room, I opened my curtains. I was like watching a 1920 movie. It was completely yellow, sepia color. Impossible. This has never happened before. One of the worst sandstorms hit them. And just 2 weeks ago, I was in Japan, took a Shinkansen from Osaka to Fukuoka on Christmas Eve. Right? Some of you might have heard about it. In Osaka, it was clear sky, bright sunshine, because it was on the east side of the mountain. And when they passed through Hiroshima, it was crazy snow. Again, once in a 10-year was sent a snowstorm. So it is real. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's just we need to open our eyes to see these things. Pandemic, nothing new by now. All of us are familiar with it. The numbers are there to see. But I ask myself this question: what is so different between this pandemic and the previous pandemic, the SARS, the Spanish flu, etc.? I think there are two lessons that we need to watch out for in relation to sustainability. First thing is that this is a pandemic that hit the whole world. No country is spared. I know some countries say there are 0 cases, but seriously, no country is spared. For the first time, the entire world is hit by the same, more or less the same disease. And the whole economic system broke down. And it really begs this question that sustainability can be the same way too. We can either get it right or get it wrong. That the whole world will finally face the same common challenge for the first time, unlike any previous time. And the second lesson is that if we ever put our heads, our hearts together, like the way we fight COVID, we could overcome. There will always be some countries that are very reluctant or wants to do things their own way. But I think we can have better way too. So I think we should believe that this serves as a great lesson that sustainability or net zero is not insurmountable. It's something we can overcome if we're willing to work together. This seems to have nothing to do with sustainability, but again, if you are reading about the trickle bottom line sustainability, social sustainability is definitely on the cards. And this is real. We live here in Singapore, and many of you come from a very blessed country. You probably don't see this on a daily basis. I thought I had seen fair share of slum. I thought I'd seen fair share of poverty. But just about 3 weeks ago, I was in Cambodia, meant to join a feeding program. And for the first time, I saw graveyard housing. How many of you have heard of graveyard housing? One person. We went to that place. You went to that place, fantastic. You feel something in your heart about that? It is quite terrifying, right? And I asked myself, why do such things happen? I mean, why can't at least build a slum in a proper place? But here is a place where the living and the dead live together. The kids were playing on the tombstone. The whole ground is under flood level. So whenever there's a flood, as you know, Cambodia, North Bank is very prone to the water just wash, cover the whole graveyard. And for these people to get to their platform, they need to roll in a container to get to their platform, at least above the water level. That's not the worst part. The worst part is when the water subsides. The amount of rubbish that's left on the housing area is terrible. But I see a bright light out of that because I went into one of the homes, and on the platform there are all kinds of rubbish processed. Amazing, right? These people have only one way to earn an income, and that's process all the rubbish. The recycling in the graveyard housing. Right? So that's where we are. Now, I want to just again highlight this net zero equation that I'm quite sure all of you heard about. What we mean by net zero is trying to reduce emissions, eliminate emissions, and then balancing greenhouse gas produced and removed from atmosphere. It all sounds very simple, but there's something that's fundamentally not addressed and potentially flawed. And that is we still producing greenhouse gas and just merely trying to balance. And I can tell you that many businesses are looking the other way around. By determining how much greenhouse gas they want to produce, then they work on those two areas. Now, don't you think there's something wrong with that attitude or that mindset? We should actually fundamentally address if we should even produce any greenhouse gas at all. I know it's not easy, but it's a change of mindset, a change of attitude that is important. So there are many things that the businesses are doing along this formula that needs to be questioned. As to, are they really reducing? Are they really willing to reduce? Or are they still more concerned about bottom line? This is bottom line, this is the future. But I want to again emphasize the importance of knowledge and ground-up actions. There's a lot of talk up there about national contribution and determination, but we need to work on the ground-up action. Every human being counts, and every action counts. So let me move on. So there are three critical areas I would suggest for you to pay attention to in this whole net zero discussion I'm going to present. Of course, we talk about climate change. To me, that's a symptom. It's done due. It will happen. It will continue to happen. But there are issues that are very fundamental that needs to be addressed on three aspects: social, economic, environment. On the environment side, over-urbanization. The world's biggest cities are still growing, and we see the likes of Beijing, Shanghai growing past 20 million in a phenomenal way. And there are many poor cities in Africa still growing past 10 million. Asian cities, particularly, and South American cities. That is a big discussion. Secondly, if cities continue to grow, as we all know, I know because I work in city space a lot, I know cities are dysfunctional. No matter how good they claim the infrastructure is, no cities can be self-sustaining. So if that continues to grow, overconsumption will happen. There's no way to overcome it. And the worst part is this organization. With governments changing year after year sometimes in months, who is organizing us? Are we organizing ourselves? Are we capable of organizing ourselves? If we are not, this is what will happen. So it will just become a vicious cycle. I will touch on three areas about some of the things I think we must do. First, let's talk about the net zero process. If you're ever going to start a business, think about it. What is your business process going to look like? Is it business as usual, linear? In a linear case of the business, you start writing a proposal or paper, you're thinking about startup. There's linear, you basically don't care about what's end, because your job is to vision it, to produce it, and thereafter the whole problem is handed over to the consumer or the owner, who really don't care what you produce. They buy it for their own purposes, and thereafter the end has nothing to do with the start. So I told all business people in my field especially, it has to be a circular business model that you start with the end in mind. And you don't wash your hand at the end of selling the product to the consumer, because you need to continue to take some kind of ownership over what you produce. Okay? It's difficult, I know, because most right-minded business people want to quickly get rid of whatever they sell and wash their hands, and thereafter nothing to do with what they produce. But that is exactly the problem. So we need to make business owners own whatever they sell. The net zero process, if you're already in one business process, we need to look at it from social, economic, and environmental aspect. We need to look at the current carbon emissions, carry out audit. I have customers who come to me and said, hey, Lisa, I want to go on a net zero process. I talk to my staff, I talk to my organization, I want to do all these things under number 3, operation. I want to start reducing the carbon, I want to be energy efficient, blah, blah, blah. I say, good. Can you tell me what is your bottom line? What's the baseline? I don't know. That's not a good way to start. I think you really need to know where your baseline emission is today. Then you can work on it. Again, knowledge, transparency. Then with that, you examine your process, you enhance your processes. Now, very important is behavioral change. We talk a lot about hardware all the time, but we fail to understand or see that by changing people's behavior, you can dramatically increase your fight against climate change. And that is very important that the whole science, technology, engineering, math, education doesn't quite teach. And of course, finally, you need to look at the recycling aspect. So in my field, I'm an architect. I will share this with you first about net zero environment. It's not rocket science. It's very easy, right? It's dealing with buildings that cannot move, not like vehicles, buildings that have to conform. So there are a few areas that we just need to pay attention to. One is alternative energy. Of course, in our country, in this city where we don't have any others, we have practical resources, and solar is still one of the best. But many buildings are still paying lip service to solarization, putting on the minimum and try to get by. That's not okay. We really need an intelligent and a all-out solution to look at how to get the most out of solar. Materials of the building need to be zero carbon. We need to think about how buildings are planned, not in a traditional way. In the past, it wastes a lot of energy. If you look at Shattered Way, CBD, look at different periods of building. There is a period when buildings are all clad in glass. And that's the killer as far as energy is concerned. And then people come up with better glass, but still, we need to rethink those paradigms. So this is an easy, relatively easy part. And the whole formula of green building is very simple. A, generate as much energy from solar. B, change user behavior, reduce the need for energy consumption, reduce the reliance on carbon intensity for comfort. And when you finish all this, we find that there isn't enough and we need to depend on alternative source of renewable energy. It's a valid consideration, but if you find that the building requires more than 3/4 of energy from elsewhere, then you need to rethink the paradigm of development. And I suggested to my colleagues in the built environment that we should rethink about how much we really need to build. Is it a maximization model or is it a responsible model? Now, many countries like Singapore has planning parameter based on a certain maximum quantum or maximum intensity that you can build on. And every developer will tell you, because of that planning consideration, I will go for the maximum. Because if I don't maximize it, I'm not getting the yield I want from the plan. And with that in mind, we see buildings all over the world, including Singapore, grow phenomenally big and huge, regardless of whether the market needs it, whether the owners and occupiers need them. So you find that a lot of buildings suddenly become ghost towns all over the world, including ours. Even when pandemic hit, we start to question how much of the building office space that we really need. Just look at COVID-19. Most of you can work from home. You no longer need an office. I'm glad that happened. So it forces us to rethink built environment paradigm. So cities are typically bad because many of them evolve from small towns and villages into big cities without complete consideration for sustainable infrastructure. And hundreds of years later, you have a city, a monster city, that the infrastructure cannot cope, right? This city is well known for that problem. Singapore, I think we still manage to keep the infrastructure in tandem with physical development. But I'd like to suggest you to think again, what kind of cities do you really like to live in? I happen to spend 4 or 5 days here because I was interacting with university on that side of town. So they housed me on Roosevelt Island. And those of you who have been there or come from there will know that far better environment to live, work, and play up there. And if you go to New York City today, you see all these pencil tall buildings that are like 60, 70 stories that has only one apartment per floor. Have you seen those? Right? And it's interesting to see them at night because the only apartments that are lit is the one on top, and the rest is all dark. Tells you something, right? It's the simple, stupid real estate play that works for the developer because by just selling and top building, not to pay for the whole ground. But it's absolutely irresponsible as far as. So we need to think about what a sustainable city should look like. It should be sustainable, it should be responsible, enough for our use, not for speculation. All right, net zero businesses. There are many business models that are sustainable, but it's not quite like this company that I interacted with by it's called Interface. It's a carpet manufacturing company based in the US. And I happened to learn this story when I was the chairman for World Community Council. This man here, Ray Anderson, was founder and CEO. And very early on in 1990s, when his company was doing very well because of the real estate boom, someone actually challenged him and asked him what was he doing about the environment. And he had a eureka moment and said, no, I think there's something not quite right with my business model. And he decided as early as 1994 that they had to cut the political cord of oil. And it's a very great move because if you think about it in 1994, some of you may be too young to remember. It was really the start of real estate boom. What you see today of exorbitantly expensive property and real estate really started in the 1980s and 1990s. So to pivot from a conventional business to one that's green business as early as that is a very great move. Now, today, these are some of his company's achievements, be it high dependence on renewable energy to run the factory, and the other aspect is the use of recyclable material for carbon taking business to prevent it from being a highly consuming and polluted industry. So this is, to me, a very, very courageous company that decide to do something different, even if it means their profit margin is compromised. And I can tell you that this is one of the most sought after company as far as carpet business is concerned today. And in running an organization, again, as part and parcel of the Global Community Council Advisory, because we have members who are developers, who are fruit manufacturers, consultants, and we start to put together this very simple chart to look at what really drives sustainability in companies. It's not a rocket science, right? So we have companies, many of them, sorry, I'm going to go back. All right. Many of them start at level 1, which basically voluntary. Very small group of people who take section only when there is time. If not, nothing happens. Then we have committees that get officially appointed to do something. Finally, a department is set up and they have KPIs related to sustainability. But I would suggest that at this time, at this day and age, there's nothing short of a C-suite leadership that's necessary to drive sustainability in business. Because only when senior management sets goals and builds it into their business KPIs, then you will see fundamental change. And I think this to me is a must. And there are no two ways about it. But there is a better way, a higher way to this, and that is to build culture. Organization culture where sustainability is firmly embedded in the DNA of the company. And when you talk about culture, if you want to know how sustainable the company is, don't ask the CEO. You should ask the person at the bottom of the hierarchy. Ask them hard questions. Do they actually practice sustainability in the company? And if they say yes and we show it, then I think you have a culture. So finally, I'm going to talk a few things about under this part, what must we do net zero culture, since we talk about culture. And you must have been to some of these countries, I think. Just again, just curious to question, how many of you have been to Costa Rica? All right, 2, 3, all right. How many of you have been to Denmark? More, all right. How many of you have been to Japan? Oh, wow. When you are in this part of the world, you should make a trip there. I've been to 2 out of 3, and not been to Denmark. I've been to all the other Scandinavian countries. I think they are quite similar. And of course, Costa Rica, when I first heard about their net zero pursuits, I almost couldn't believe it, because when I was there, that was 2018. I didn't quite see everything I wanted to see. But through further interaction and investigation, I'm happy to say that it is indeed doing some of these things. And as far as biodiversity is concerned, no questions are. I think that's really become a national thing as far as Costa Rica is concerned. For Denmark, I think it's easy, it's well reported, and those of you who have been there agree, right, that this is really a very, very green country, and some of the achievements are amazing. And even in my trip to Norway, Finland, Sweden, they are just about similar, and I'm very sure that they achieve what they set out to do here. In Japan, of course, since you're in Asia, I strongly encourage you to make a trip there and study the culture and look at how they achieve their brand of sustainability. Language barriers sometimes is a little bit of a problem for us to understand. But my greatest takeaway for it is that it is a culture that is brought up since young. And I did ask some of the Japanese to why do they think of sustainability the way they think about it, as in a group or as in a closed circle. So it is partly apparently inspired by their belief system and their religion. And they gave me a classic example. They say a child is taught very young that whatever things you take from anywhere, you must put it back. So are there any Japanese? No, not that I can see. Right. So in case I say the wrong thing, please verify. But basically because of that upbringing, so they are very aware that whatever you take away from the environment, from the people, you need to put it back. I guess in some ways it is quite true. If you go to Japan and look at what they do in the country, you can hardly find trash bin around. Whatever trash that you generate, you just have to take care of it back home. There are other things that associated with Japanese culture. I'm not quite sure whether they relate to sustainability, things like sake and lots of drinking alcohol. Maybe it's their way of living. How many of you watch World Cup? Anyone from Argentina? Anyone from France? Okay. It's okay, France law, you'll read in stuff. But look at what the Japanese did, right? It's amazing. How can a group of people, after a game, collect the rubbish and keep the whole place so clean? Is it organized by the Prime Minister of Japan? Is it organized by some Ministry of Environment of the Japanese government? No, it's ground up. And it's so creative, making use of blue trash bag is also something to cheer the team on. So I believe I'm a firm believer of ground up action. As much as top down, but I think ground up has even greater strength. And I'm a firm believer of self-organization. So finally, how do we start? Just a few more slides before we conclude. We need net zero people. In my time with the World Review Council that I currently enjoy, both as a council member, board member, and chairman, we have 70 country members and we eat, sleep, and talk sustainability non-stop. And it is with people like that that we will influence each other, we will challenge each other, and we will encourage each other, because it's so important that we do that. Sustainability is not an easy journey. Sometimes a very lonely journey. But with like-minded people around, we do phenomenal things. It's not a big NGO, it's only 70 country members, but we raise our voice at COP21. Together with a few other global organizations, we prove very simply that if our buildings don't become net zero, we will never be able to bring global warming down to below 2 degrees Celsius. So we announced in COP21 that all buildings must achieve net zero by 2050. Now, at that time, we were still naive to believe that we get there. Now we are facing real challenge to know that we are far from getting there. So, but my point is that to get there, you need a lot of believers, you need a lot of friends, you need a lot of encouragement, and you need the net zero people to do that. The second thing we did is as soon as we announced the importance of net zero, we published case studies, numbers, facts on how to get to net zero in small ways, big ways, medium ways, whatever. Education came in very quickly, and it helps a lot of people to understand how to get to net zero or partial net zero in practical ways. The worst thing is not teaching people. So I think it's very important to do that. This report is free, you can download it as well. It's been published since 2017, and we proved in business terms that we can achieve a viable net zero environment. And of course, campaigns. Campaigns are important to reach out to the masses. So my point about ground initiative is that we cannot do this alone. We need a lot of voices, a lot of people to help us. Net zero is amazing. It actually spin off so many innovations just within the last 5 to 10 years. And you find new innovations that were never before possible until you start to think about sustainability and innovation. So we have urban planning that takes on new ways of planning the city, like creating eco-city. Not perfect, but it's a good start. We have buildings that now don't greenery instead of glass and glass. We have buildings that can prove that it is totally possible to be energy self-sufficient. I see real, and I look forward to the day where we have electrified all transport system. Something 10 years ago, we hardly hear people talking about it. Wind energy, nobody believed that it can power a nation. That's what Denmark is so good at. Green financing, vertical farming. Singapore is quite big on this in order to achieve our 30% self-sufficient target. So I think that net zero and sustainability could potentially be building up a new renaissance. A renaissance that is from the tech type, a renaissance that is digital type, but yet at the same time improve and enhance quality of life, especially for the corporate campus. So with that, I come to the end of my short talk, and I think we should continue to be hopeful. We may not reach the target of lowering the global temperature warming by 2 degrees by 2050, maybe 1 degree, but whatever number, I will take it. And we must take decisive actions and act on it time to time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
I have one or two questions if someone wants to ask a question. I'm going to start with one, and maybe it's one that's going to how do you deal with your clients? Is that something that is really tough to do, or is that chicken and cake?
The truth is that it takes a while to convince clients. Of course, in running businesses, prior to joining SUBD, I run business technology with the government. You always start with, of course, clients that you don't listen to you and pay you. Some listen to you, but they don't pay you. So there are all kinds of clients. Then I think the sustainability movement has gone on for more than 50 years now, since alcohol's movement. So I think by the time when I pushed for it in 2010, most clients would listen, but they don't do it all the way. And some do very little. We seldom have a situation where we find how much we reject. Say, no, I just want a non-green. No, we don't find that anymore. But moving forward, what worries me more is not about finding clients with this. What worries me more is clients who will do. I mean, it's simple that we call it greenwashing, but it's actually very legitimate greenwashing. Basically, check the boxes and stop whenever it does get bottom line. Okay. That worries me.
Is there any one question? One question here.
So thank you for your talk. Getting around the split of responsibility between businesses and consumers. So there's been over the last decades, the carbon footprint was found by Shell, so push sort of to put the responsibility on the hand of the consumer. Now we have this pushback saying we need to be more regular for the companies, because we're not organized in the way they not targeted in the same way. All these split the responsibilities that she was go between consumers and companies, and for example, would be interested in how to see that we'll look in the architecture space, what power dependence, for example, we have.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I've seen, let me start with non-architecture market. The most recent one, I have a group of friends from furniture business who are really serious about making a circular economy work. So they are starting to look at impact of the product at the end of line. With again targeting a certain consumer. So I think that sort of model can work in kind of a advanced economy like ours, where consumers are generally well informed and educated, and they are targeting and generally young consumers. So as part and parcel of the store philosophy is they use that to explain and to educate the consumer that whenever you buy this table or chair from me, we will continue to maintain the customer relationship until the day you're ready to dispose of the furniture, and we'll come back in. review, to recycle, or to repurpose the furniture. I think that's doable because furniture generally don't cost as much as a building. Now, in the building, it's quite tough, especially in the housing market. We have basically, I think for the building construction authority, so I can tell you the fact is that there are two kinds of properties, right? One is for sale, and one is for lease. One for lease is no problem because the developer continues to own the building. So be it an office, you lease from the developer continues to look after the building, make sure that it is well maintained and runs efficiently. So that's okay. The worst case is actually properties for sale, housing. So when a developer builds a housing for sale and you as a buyer buy it, the developer is very happy to wash their hands. Thank you. This customer, this is your property, the proud owner of the new property. But thereafter, how does the building perform? The developer doesn't get. It fulfills the regulation at the point of completion. But 10 years later, does the building still perform up to the mark? It's no longer the developer's responsibility. Now, that is the category of building, in my view, is most problematic because buildings will continue to deteriorate and fail to work as originally promised. Singapore, fortunately, we have a very strong building management act that forces whoever owns the building has got to bring it up to date to the kind of performance that it's supposed to deliver. Now, again, it works for non-residential buildings like offices, hotels, even though it is so. But for residential building, it is presumed that these buildings function as non-air conditioning. We all know that every residential building, people use air conditioning, and some even 724. And it is actually consuming lots of energy. So the residential building typology actually failed to, and I think if nothing changes, will fail to achieve the circularity of real estate. I want to challenge you, some of you are in real estate, to rethink the paradigm of real estate. Is it possible to own a housing, a condominium, and yet not allow the developer to completely hand over, but maintain with some form of sustainability responsibility towards the end of the life? Okay, I don't have to answer, but maybe something some of you might want to think. I hope I answered your question partially, maybe.
The last one.
Yeah, you should start the line.
Hi, my question is, so as an architect, what percentage of your work is based on new projects? Like, for example, constructing new buildings, more of your work is based on renovating existing buildings that have, for example, problems in their construction.
Yeah, again, good question. I will expand my answer. The simple answer is that pre-pandemic, I think typically most architects will have a portfolio like 90% of new buildings and 10% of retrofit of existing buildings. Some firms are more specialized, maybe 20%. Now I'm going to take that answer further. Right? In my mind, I think cities are overbuilt. And I think the pandemic showed us that we don't really need that many offices. Okay, you already disagree with me, that's okay. So if you think about it, and again, my other numbers that I can kind of postulate is housing, for example. If 80% of Singaporeans live in public housing, why are we still doing so many condos? Why is there a case where young couples say they have to wait for a long time before they get a HDB flat? When we have so many older estates, and we are not producing enough babies, right? So where do the young couples come from? Buying all these public housing units. I have a hunch that it is a way to meet the aspirations of young people who wants to continue to upgrade from public housing to private housing to even better housing. There's nothing wrong with that. But are we building too much? My sense is that I think in any cities we are building or advanced economy with overbuilding. Now, what's next then? If we are overbuilding, then we should look at a reduction in planning buildings. I think in the next 10 years, if we want to achieve the kind of sustainable goals of development in, say, a city like Singapore, we probably should see that ratio change. In fact, my ideal number would be 50-50. 50% of the brand new project only on a need-to basis, and 50% of the effort should go to active retrofit and conservation of the existing built environment, raise the green standard of these existing buildings that were once brown. So that would be my answer.
Thank you very much for the discussion.
So now, time for going to a mentor in the safety group. So I join them right now and for the workshop. Let's turn to be more on